a relatively easy way to discover whether something is true or false. Where it becomes problematic is when we've got kind of a personal investment in beliefs that are not the kinds of beliefs that can be tested as true or false. So the confusing thing for a lot of people, and we talked about Wittgenstein, and I even had that as a test question. What did he think at the end of the Tractatus when he said, what you can't really talk about, you have to pass over in silence. Wovon man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man schweigen, in German, right? Silly song, even that the Germans make fun of him, right? But, we get the point, if what you're just thinking about is the true or false statements that we can verify, which is what a computer can do. Is this code yes? Then this. If it isn't, then no. Binary code, basically. Yes, no. What a computer can do is amazing. It does all kinds of wonderful things. I don't know how safe it is to drive in a car or sit in a car that's being driven by a computer when the complexity of the lady with the carriage that's not seeing the car coming. But remember, in California, cars have to stop for pedestrians. That's the law, So, but sometimes you stop and there isn't a reason to stop, and then you get rear-ended and everybody blames the automatic, so life is much more complex than what computers, at least at this point, are able to do. And true and false statements are really guilty of this problem because so much of what we really believe that give us a sense of value, love, affection, are really based not on things that can be answered as true or false, but as beliefs in this narrative is better than this narrative. And that's another issue. I don't have an answer for you. You have to explore that yourself. Why is it that some narratives are our favorites? I like this. I don't like this. Is it because, my taste buds are not as good as my wife's? It's very clear to me that my wife and my daughters smell better than I do. They taste better than I do. I don't know if the same thing applies to our visual senses, but if they tell me don't eat that, it's bad. Might not smell bad to me, but I'm going to trust them because they can tell better than I can. Whether this is any good. I still make dumb mistakes, with regard to food. I've been eating food for 73 years, basically, as far as I know. I don't know if you could call MREs food. However, I ate a lot of MREs, during 16 years, 9 months, and 3 days of my life. Actually, I started off with sea rats.
I remember, I've had sea rats.
Little box with, the cans nested in one another with
It's the old school one.
canned rations.
Oh, I thought you meant like a rat, like R-A-T.
Oh, gosh.
Army speak for ration.
I probably have had some rat, but no one told me that's what it was. So, I don't know. I understand they taste like chicken. So.
Everything tastes like chicken.
Okay, so you get the idea. True and false is really very simple, but we make it a bigger deal than it is because we also like to say that the moral of a story is the real truth. But when we're talking about truth in that sense, or Romeo and Juliet, oh, Romeo, be true. That's clearly different than what we're talking about when we're talking about statements being true or false. Don't be like the moon. follow the moon in its monthly orb, lest that thou be likewise variable, she says. Swear not by the moon. Sorry if I ruin your Shakespeare experience. Please do read Shakespeare because, well, otherwise you won't know all the Shakespeare quotes, when they come up. I like the one, there was a pair of friends, they went to a play, a Shakespeare play, and it was the first time for one of the two of them. The other one had been to lots, but they came out of the play after seeing it, and they said, "Wow, what did you think of it?" And he says, "Wow, it was really interesting, but it was just so full of all those, oh shoot, what's the word for things that everybody say all the time? Cliches. It was so full of cliches."
He created the cliches.
Well, but he created the cliches in that play. They weren't cliches then.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw a page just the other day that these are thanks to Shakespeare, these are phrases or words that we have, that we still use. Mm-hmm. And, you of course recognize every single one of them. So he came up with a lot. So where was I on that? So true and false, we have to do that, and it's very basic. And then once you do that, then you can see how logical arguments are formed. And following Aristotle, of course, the very first system we had was the syllogisms. So once you have the square of opposition, which still, when we talk about P and Q or whatever statements that you're feeding into the computer, those statements are on a square. You can figure out logically if this statement is true, this one has got to be false, this one could be true or false, and this one could be true or false, or is true. The arrangement, so the square is kind of neat. Logic class seems to be the first place people see this in their experience. So that's a necessary part of a logic course, is to do that and point out that it's not that Aristotle was trying to help us think correctly. He was trying to explain why it is that we do think correctly. This is the description of what people who are thinking correctly are doing. So yes, it could be a tool for you to think correctly, following Aristotle. But the point, of course, is that hopefully, you're already doing this. Because if you don't realize that when someone says all the chairs in this room are green, and then someone can point out, no, that one is black, right? And we all go, oh yeah, you're right, So you were wrong to say that, all the chairs are green. And there's, that one's got a coat on it, so that's why that one's, In fact, you might point out that these aren't green chairs. Only the seat is green. Everything else, has different. Well, what are you doing when you're criticizing a statement, that someone theoretically is proposing is true? You can right away say, well, I know what you mean, but no, that's not really true. We're using the square. So Aristotle's just trying to describe the way that square works in people's minds who are thinking on, on the, it's working correctly. I was thinking not on acid,
Yeah.
or other problems, that are out there. So yes, we do the square. Based on that, we know the relationships between different kinds of statements. Plus, we can then go into syllogisms, which is where basically more than one statement. Remember, there's, just the way Aristotle structures them, and no one's come up with a better system at that level of dealing with logic. The only question is that his kind of categorical thinking doesn't include, or might not include, depending on how you interpret him, relational predicates. This book is bigger than that book. Well, it can be, done categorically. It's just that some people would like to be a little bit more detailed in the way they logically describe the relationship. In any case, so we do the syllogisms, and that's fun. That's also one of the rote learning parts of the course, where you're theoretically supposed to just learn the valid syllogisms. So, okay, Barbara is like the divine argument, and other arguments that have like a negative premise, but an affirmative conclusion. Oh no, that's got to be false. I mean, not false, but invalid, right? Because statements are true or false, arguments are valid or invalid. Which I've never felt like people leaving the class will no longer say, "Oh, that's a valid point." They'll still say that, even though that strictly speaking, valid is an argument, not a statement. But it's too much a part of our everyday speech for that to go away. In any case, so we do that, we go over that. We can use Venn diagrams to think about that so that the patterns are visual as well as conceptual. Very nice. Aristotle did not have Venn diagrams. John Venn invented those in England. All right, so categorical propositions, syllogisms, we've talked about. We do go into language matters again with Wittgenstein and then Quine. I think I talked a little bit about the web of belief. I know we went over that at least once, talking about his book, how to be good at science, basically, and how it's almost like in your head you've got a spider web, and then as you learn new things, you have to fix the web, make reconnections. Sometimes something is really startling and the center of the web gets wrecked, and you have to really, resurrect your web, by fixing it and incorporating the new information that you have, so that you have a different kind of web afterwards. We talked a little bit about Lewis Carroll, not just a children's weird children's story writer, but those are logical puzzles, and he was a logician and a photographer that liked taking pictures of children nude, which
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, yeah. Like Alice and her sisters and stuff, he had taken lots of pictures of them nude. And the thing was, the camera was a new thing, and painters would paint people in the nude. They still do that here on campus. If you ever
Those
go...
here are adults, though. The ones in the painting.
That's true, but if you look at Renaissance paintings especially, they have lots of little children and stuff. And in fact, I was looking at a beautiful video.
What are all those Greek cherubs?
The thing is, the feeling in Europe still, while I was there in the 80s, was that children are so young it doesn't matter. You go to the beach, they don't have to wear anything until a certain age. And at a certain age, then they should wear pants. But I remember, watching German TV in my quarters, and a commercial on shampoo would come on, and I would be in the other room, and Donna would say, "Oh, Bill, it's a shampoo commercial," because she knew I got a kick out of seeing the young woman shampooing her hair with nothing on top, because not a problem in European.
That's the thing. Like, I've been to Mexico, visit Brazil, and on the beaches, they have most women, and of course men, don't have anything on top.
Yeah,
They're just like tanning there, completely in the nude, and I was like, oh.
It's definitely a cultural purity.
Yeah, it
that's
is.
very
Yeah.
American.
My parents grew up like with that too. They were like, they didn't care because they grew up in Chile, and so they were like okay, so I grew up like, okay, obviously I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's, if you were in Iran,
Mhm.
mm,
I can see too much of your eyes.
Yeah.
I
awful.
see an eyebrow, it's porn.
Mhm. It's terrible.
I'm sorry, but I remember seeing a picture of a whole bunch of people all wearing burqas, with just the little bit of their eyes, and they were all posing like a family picture behind scenery. And